Welcome back to the Terps of the Beast Coast. I'm hanging out with Mr. Bond. He's one of the Resin Cup judge. We actually went through some of the well, not some, all the entries, and we're going to be talking to him today about what's his take, his feedback on one of the entries were. But before we do that, just in case if you don't know who he is, I did have him on in an earlier episode of Terps of the Beast Coast. So if you want to go back and check that out, but we're just going to do a brief kind of bio so people can understand his love for the resin. So, Mr. Bond, how you doing today?
Good, good. How you doing, man?
I can't complain, man. I appreciate you taking some time out to hop on here today in regards to the resin cup that we're having. What'd you think of the entries?
Well, first of all, congrats on everything and having it go successful so far. Um, to be honest with you, man, there was all of them were really top notch. I mean, I can't really complain about any of them. Some were better colors than others. Some were better consistencies, and just different styles and different cannabinoid, the way the cannabinoids work is, I was really impressed. I was really impressed, actually.
Wow, thank you so much. We appreciate that. I hope you Hashishians are enjoying this feedback that he was overwhelmed with all of the love that you guys put into it. So before we go a little deeper into what were your favorites in regards to terpene profile when you were checking them out, let's give us a little history. How long have you been playing with resin?
All my life, it feels like. uh Shit, I mean, like, I think, like I said on the other show, I mean, I've been interested in this stuff since I started smoking, which was probably around, unfortunately, probably around 14 or 15 years old. So I'm 40 now, so that's a good amount of chunk of years. But yeah, I've always been interested in the cannabis industry, and I've always been on the side of it being governed by the government in a wrongful way, and they put the propaganda on it and stuff, and I'm always leaning towards the side of, why are you guys doing this, asking questions. So finally, back in the 90s, when California started doing their thing with it, and it made it a little easier to, find out information on threads and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride. I mean, all the way to now, and even still, I'm learning, different stuff, and you know, I do this every day pretty much over at Bonsai. So, we're always working with new cultivars, and pheno hunting, and I'm always learning something. As far as different terpene profiles, and that the way they react, and with the way they change over time, and it's just really crazy.
Definitely, definitely, because I can definitely see what you're talking about as time progresses, the cure when things start to change, and I can see some of the entries when they first came in definitely changed up a little bit, which
Yep, yep.
I got to remember in the future as soon as I get them in, take the pictures versus waiting later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and like I said, I do this every day. So, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that know this. If you keep them in the freezer or the fridge somewhere cold and dark where the light can't get to it, because as we all know, time, heat, and light, and
Mm,
or light, is what starts degrading the process of the cannabinoids and how the terpenes work. Because the terpenes are a solvent, so once you break everything and turn everything into rosin, things are happening. The air's getting to it, the temperature, the different, light spectrums. So I've noticed when I keep stuff in the fridge or the freezer, it doesn't, it kind of like suspends it in time. And as soon as you
mm.
take it out into the heat and the light and all that shit, that's when it starts doing some crazy things. Like number 12, number 11 and 12 were super, super stable. And just from them being out in my little dab area here, they've already changed to a crumble. They were super shatter, stable, and now it's just a nice crumbly texture, which I kind of like too, because you could, I just pick little chunks up,
Mhm.
put it in the banger, and then heat it up and go at it. But different strokes for different folks. You know that.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you're a cold starter, huh?
I never was, and now I am, just because I can delegate, where I want it. You know what I mean? And you've been to my house. You see my other rig that I have hooked up to the email. I have that thing set at
Yep, yep.
550, 600. So I'm still kind of low temp, but hey, some people like it hot, some people like it low and slow. So it's all a preference. I don't agree with the super super hot, because it can definitely hurt your lungs and damage things. So um, yeah, I mean, it's all preference.
Me personally, the reason why I like it such a low temp is because shit, when you fucking fire it up at a low temp, you kind of get all the terpenes, but when you do
Yeah,
it at high temp, you kind of miss some of those terpenes. And I swear, like the other day I did some, I forgot what it was, the Tropical or something like that, and did it real high, and it was like not the same as though if I did it from a cold start, where it's just like this funk, this kind of gassy, kind of like sweet
right,
but
right.
heavy with
Well,
a
and it makes sense, because if you follow like the decarbing um, instructions, so to say, or the method,
hmm hmm
everything starts at a low temp, and you go higher and higher and higher to get different things out of the cannabinoids. So it's the same thing with terpenes, I would think. Like, the more volatile ones burn off at a lower temp, so you're going to lose them if you're going straight into a hot banger or whatever. So yeah, you always get that back end of, like, it's kind of like when guys make moonshine. They talk about the beginning, where you got to throw that shit out, and then you get to the middle of the hearts, and you want to keep all that, and then you get the back end that's got different kind of flavors going on that you can play with, mixing. So it makes sense to me. You start at a lower temp, and like the cold start does, and
Yep.
that banger stays warm for a good, it gets hotter even though you take the flame off. It stays a good temp for a few seconds. So, you're missing out if you're not doing that. I feel so. And we've been here since the beginning. So, I remember the first metal, uh, bangers that we had with the little dome and shit. We used to heat that thing up so it was orange hot.
Yep.
Just
With
the
the
dab would be
little,
evaporated before you even it touched anything. So you learn.
yeah.
A lot of kids these days, that I see them starting with the cold, starting on the low end now. So and they get it. A bunch of those kids, they understand that the they get the better flavor in the beginning. You might not get all the high that unless you keep burning it and smoking it and burning it and smoking it. But I watch these kids nowadays. They do it, and they take two little puffs, and then they're in there with the fucking Q-tip right away to clean it. And I'm like, whoa, you just got wait all that, you missed all that.
Ah, hey, don't learn, hopefully, because it takes a while to figure out each different strain, because like you said, each strain has its own favorable temp based on the terpene profile
Yeah,
and
yeah.
makeup of what's happening with it. So let's talk about resin ranching. And when I say resin ranching, I'm talking about your favorite bag when you're working it, man. What's your favorite macro micron when you're working?
Well, I have to admit, I'm that guy. When I first started doing it, you know, however many years ago, 10 years ago, with the actual bags, I was always like a 120 guy.
Mm.
Even though the 90 came out, There was no 90 bag back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Bubbleman or whoever, they
Mm-hmm.
brought the 90 bag into play. And then I started, once I started using it, I was like, oh shit, like this is the best of the best heads that you can farm, or collect, you know what I mean? But then as I started washing more and more stuff, and learning things from Frenchie and other people down the road, I just noticed that it's like the same thing we were just talking about with dabbing.
Mm-hmm.
If the plant puts, like, when we smoke the bud, we're getting every micron there is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting that full flavor, you know, um, the full experience of the plant. Now, when we dab it, and I feel when you separate them, I mean, sure, it's nice to have certain profiles taken away from the plant itself, and only have that one profile to smoke, and then the other ones you can mess around with, whatever. But so I just ended up starting to just collect all of the best, from the 120 right down to the 73 or the 70, would depending on what bag is using nowadays. That spectrum was always my favorite to mix together, and just keep together. And
Mm-hmm.
also, when you're washing a shit ton of fucking bud or trim or whatever you're doing, it's a kind of a pain in the dick to have to separate all the bags and shit, especially when you're working with real fire. When the shit's really good and it dumps really good,
Mm-hmm.
I just feel you can keep the 70 through the 120 together, and either smoke it as hash or squish it all as rosin. And
Right.
then I've done the testing with my space bomb, where I separated the 160, the 120, the 90, the 73, and the 45, and had them tested for terpene profile separately. And just as I suspected was going to be, the higher terpene levels was in actually the 160,
Mm-hmm.
and then the 120 was just a couple points lower, and the 90 was maybe like a point or two lower than the 120, and
Mm-hmm.
then so on and so forth. So when I saw that, I was like, well, screw it, I'm just gonna collect everything, separate the 160, because sometimes it's super fire anyways, and if you're gonna squish it, what the fuck does it matter, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I would just collect the 120 through the 73, and keep that as one profile. And everybody, no one really was the wiser when I first started doing it. I could have said it was 90, I could have said it was 120, I could have said it was 73. They would have never known. But me doing the process and working with it and smoking it and testing it, I was like, there's no point for me to be doing all this extra washing, as far as separation in the bags, when I can just eliminate all the poop from the front and all the poop at the back and keep the middle.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
there you go, I'm done. People laugh when they watch me wash and they see what I get, and they're like, how come you did it like that? And I kind of explain what I just did, and they're like, yeah, you're cutting a shit ton of time off. It's like, yeah, man, and I'm keeping more room. I eliminate shelves in the freeze dryer, because I only got the 70 and through the 120 on two trays. You know
Gotcha.
what I mean? And then I get the 160 and the 45 on another tray. So I got a couple extra shelves there to do another run or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
it's
man.
all preference, really. But when you get down to brass tacks, like, I see, and I kind of laugh at everybody when I see people put, like, oh, my full spectrum, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I
Right.
can't allow you to say that, because do you have the 25 micron in there? Do you have the
Mm-hmm.
160 micron in there? I don't think you do, because no offense, I'm a professional, and I damn well know you didn't put the 25 in there. You know what I mean? Like,
Nope.
it's just, so it's not really full spectrum, but it's very very close to what I say is the best of the best of everything. You know what I mean? You take away the poop from the front, take away the poop from the back, and you keep the middle, and you leave that as one, and you get. I feel you get the best flavor, the best profiles. You know, even when you are cold starting or hot dabbing. You know what I mean? So
Man, that is some beautiful information. We appreciate you sharing that, man, because, at the end of the day, resin ranching, it all depends on how you want to get it done. And, he has his own technique. I have my own technique. Everybody's got their own technique. It's what you're comfortable with. And
yep,
definitely agree when it comes to the full spectrum. And I even go even further, when it comes to, like you're saying, you're doing really full spectrum, I think it has to be just growing outdoors to really get the full spectrum. But that
absolutely,
that's just
absolutely.
me personally.
I agree, 100%. I agree. I mean, what everybody says it. You're trying to when you do indoors, you're
Mhm.
trying to recreate the outside, but indoors with no bugs and no shit that can get on the plant. But
Yeah.
you can't compare anything to outside. You just can't. The sun, it does its thing. It's been doing it for billions of years.
Mm.
So you're right, 100%. Because inside, if you're using a certain spectrum of light that the sun doesn't, that you can't get from the sun because the company only makes this spectrum, you're missing out on a terpene or a cannabinoid or whatever. Whether it be up or down, who knows? You know what I mean? It could be up, could be down, but
I've been I've been getting crazy into glandular heads research lately, and I've been trying to just like figure it out in regards to the different, capillate to stocklet, in regards to how these different resins and trichome heads, and it's just like, huh, that explains
yeah,
it. Because here's the thing, like, at the end of the day, when you're indoor and you're producing the trichomes, right? You could still produce trichomes, but you might not produce the trichomes that would naturally grow if you had it in the outside.
100%. Yeah,
And
and I know it for a fact because I've grown my space bomb indoors and I've sent it out to my home to Mendo Dope out in Cali, and they've grown it on the mountain. They've grown it at their house, and I've seen the differences of the heads of and the stalks. It's it's a world of difference. It 100% makes it 100% makes a difference. I,
wow.
I I find when we grow outside, the stalks are way beefier,
Hmm. Hmm.
which it makes sense because the plant's dealing with crazy wind and temperature swings and different spectrums of light. There's all kinds of things that play into it. Whereas when you're inside, the plant's not getting battered by anything. You know what I mean? There's just a nice light breeze going around by the fans.
Yeah.
So the plant doesn't have to work so hard to keep that stalk on to keep the
100%.
head on the stalk. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's
So
like it's like when we when we have the plant indoor and we kind of like we kind of move the stalk, the stem around a little bit to harden it, right? And that's because
yeah,
we're
exactly,
naturally doing it. So
exactly.
it's the same thing with nature outdoor. It's moving those capital, they just moving those stalks and they just moving. So they have to develop a stronger base to hold those
Yep,
resin on the plant. And
yep. And the thickness of the, I call it cuticle,
mhm,
the actual waxy coating that holds in all the terpene, the medicine, everything that we want is in
mhm,
that little gland.
mhm.
There's, excuse me, there's some in the stems,
Yes.
but not much.
Not,
Not even close to as clean as what's in the head. So, the thickness of that head outdoors is always thicker than indoors because of the different spectrums of light and the way the plant has to react to the cold and the warm and the moisture and whatever it's dealing with the weather.
yep.
That plays a big part because I've seen plants that have really nice heads, but they're not full of anything and they're sitting
Mm.
on little stumpy stalks.
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
and, and because of that, when you freeze it, that little stumpy stalk is gonna, because it's doesn't have it's very stumpy and thick. The motion of the ocean when we washing, it can't break it in the middle. it's got to break off from the leaf. Now you got a piece of leaf particle at the bottom of your stalk with the head flying around somewhere that doesn't have any fucking resin in it or barely anything. And then when you go to smoke it or try and melt it, obviously it doesn't melt because you got plant material in there. You got the little stumpy stalk that's flying around with a bunch of other stumpy stalks and barely any heads that aren't full of anything. So that's when people go, "Oh shit, you can't wash this cultivar
Yeah.
because it just doesn't wash well." You know what I mean? It's not what we were looking for. And then
Yeah.
you see other things that are really long, squiggly. Uh, they look like the characters from one of them Disney movies, Under the Sea. All them
Mhm.
little creatures. They look like squiggly little fucks
So
with a nice,
seahorses. Yeah.
yeah, with a nice little fucking head on top that might not be as big, but it's fucking. It's a nice glandular sandy head when you get them all in a bunch that feels like sand and they're real stable. That's how I look at bud when I'm delegating if I want to wash it or not. Like really all I do is feel it. I just know by feel now. But if I get in with a microscope, it's even better because I can see how many stalks there are to head ratio. Because I'm sure you've seen a shit ton of pictures that the bud looks super frosty, but then you get a picture up close and it's
It's
all
all
them real
stock.
sharp stalks
It's
with
all
no head
stock.
on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bro.
So
Yeah.
it's like, it's just fuzzy shit. When you wash something like that, you don't get shit. You know what I
And
mean? It's
and my theory behind that is because it's biomass being pushed versus the resin being ranched.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So I
And then
mean,
you try and go and squish it and
mhm,
you get a little tiny bit of oil and you're like, hey, this isn't like what
mhm.
they show me on Instagram or, you know,
Oh
and
shit.
it's
You
like,
went
well, yeah, I mean, it's the truth, you know what I mean? And everybody asks me, how I do things and this and that, and it's really I say it all the time, like I can give you the basics of what you want to look for, but it
mhm,
takes seat time and wash time. Like you have to see. I
100%.
mean, thousands. I've seen thousands of strain of cultivars and phenos, and I'm, like I said, I'm still learning.
Yep.
So it's
100%.
never, it's never going to end. It's just a matter of knowing, oh, this is one of those gassy, indica strains that, and I hate saying strains, cultivars that, usually washes well. And then you get some of those sativa, like heavy sativa leaning cultivars and phenos, and they're real greasy. And you
Mm,
try and wash them and it don't work. You actually, you see the oil that you were trying to get in heads is slopped all over your bags and all over the top of the water. So there's a fine line of what works and what doesn't, and it takes a long time and just experience to figure it out to a point where you know you feel comfortable taking in your buddy's room that he just grew to turn into fresh frozen. That's a huge task that is very scary. You know what I mean? Because
and
you
and
just you know how it goes. You know what I mean?
and I want to talk to you about that. And that's another thing. So I've been on the fence, and I think right now I prefer full cure dried. I don't know. So you prefer fresh frozen versus dried and cured?
No, I don't. I don't. I mean, I do love my fresh frozen. Don't get me wrong, but
Mono
that's like
monoterpenes are
a
the best.
yeah, right. Um, I feel the fresh frozen thing is uh, like a delicacy in a
Mm,
sense where if you have 10 or 12 plants and you want to dry 8 or 9 of them and you'll still have enough medicine for yourself or whatever, and then you can fresh frozen the other couple plants, it's really not going to hurt you especially if you're a connoisseur of of that type of stuff, and you want that little batch of nice high end, you know, melt or rosin. I do feel when obviously when you dry and cure things, you are losing terpenes to the curing process as it dries.
Hmm.
That's why I say this all the time. That's why you can smell when you walk into a room that has weed hanging in it. You
Hmm.
can smell you can smell it. So
Yep.
that's a loss in itself, and people don't realize that when you obviously when you freeze it, right when you cut it down, again you're suspending it in time. Everything stops. The smell doesn't go anywhere. As long as you don't move it around a lot, you're not beating it up. Everything stays intact. So it's really a fine, like a fine wine, top shelf thing to do in a sense. But yes, I do like for the big processors of companies and stuff like that, it makes more sense to do it, you know, dried, cured. Um, it's not that you get more. It's just the ratio from wet to dry, how much you can put in the washer machine, or do by hand, or however you're doing it. Um, it just you see the difference of weight that you
Right.
get back. You know what I mean? How many grams you get back or whatever. So it makes a difference, but in the long run, like I do at bonsai, I wash all the littles that don't get trimmed, and I wash the trim that's good because
Right.
my trimmers that are there, they kill it every day. Every time I get a bag, it's literally you can see in the bottom of the bag all the heads just chilling.
Nice. Nice.
And so I know it's going to be a good wash. And obviously, I've picked these things since we grew them for washing. The flour goes out as flour, but they're still good washers, also. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
So if I feel like doing a fresh frozen of my Space Bomb or whatever, I'll do it. If the demand is there. Or if I need to make diamonds, the fresh frozen seems to work a little better to make diamonds with. But I do like washing and smoking the full spectrum, dry, cured, trim or nugs or whatever. It is better. I like it better.
Is it so? Now to finalize on that, so we can really. So, is it whole plant or trim? Which one would you prefer, dried and cured?
Oh,
Whole
definitely
plants?
the whole plant. If you can throw the buds in there and boost your yield up, as far as washing just the trim, you know, then fine. But it don't make sense to have such nice, especially like I said, I'm thinking in bonsai's world, where that's it's a huge facility that's pumping out a good amount of medicine to Rhode Island. So it makes it easy for me to go, oh no, I'm not going to wash that. I'll wash this. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean? And there's a shit ton of trim and littles that don't get trimmed. You know what I mean? From what you grow, so you get it. All them little things that pop up during while the plant's growing. Those couple little bottom branch buds. The
Yep.
trimmers, it don't make sense for them to sit there and take fucking 2.5 minutes to trim that little bud when you're gonna get a little tiny fucking nuglet out of it anyway. They just toss it into my bin because they know I'm gonna wash it. So you learn those things as when you're in the company for a while, and it just makes it easy on everybody because now they're not wasting their time on it, and they're upping their numbers. You know what I'm saying? So it just makes sense.
Definitely, definitely. So, with that said, just to bring it back, in regards to the entries, what was your favorite, 1 through 12?
I think if I have to fucking really pick a favorite because of like the stability, I think it was, yeah, number 9. It was nice little solid, stable flakes. Um, it almost, it was really potent on the nose. That's the
Mm,
thing. Some of these, they looked really good, but they had no smell, so they got,
mm,
they didn't get the best score on the smell side of things. So, and some of them smelled good and didn't have the best flavor.
mm,
So it was back and forth. And it was definitely was expected. Especially when you see 12 really fire entries, whether they look good or smell good or taste good. That's up to me to decide. But definitely, number 9 stood out to me a lot. I liked it a lot. Number 12 was nice. Um, it seemed like, to me, if I had to guess, and I could be 100% wrong, obviously, it seemed like 11 and 12
mhm,
were the same person, whoever entered them, and one they squished one separate from the other. Maybe they were different grades of hash. One was the 120, one was the 90, or whatever the case is.
mhm,
I could tell they were it's from the same person. I'm almost 100% positive. I don't know
mm,
who they are, but just judging on everything, appearance, the way everything was, and the consistencies that they are now from what
mhm.
they looked like before. I don't know. For some reason that caught my eye.
Nice,
and,
nice.
and the jars. I mean, I'm not going to beat around the bush. The jars were the same. The jars were the same square. And everything looked similar, and it just, everything just screamed at me that it was the same person. But they did a great job. I'm not taking anything away from it.
Of
They
course, of
both were
course.
they both were really good. Just I could tell. I think one was one thing and another was another thing. So I don't know. I could be wrong, but the 11 and 12 stood out to me. Like I said, those were the ones that were the most stable as far as how long ago it was squished.
Mm,
Um, and now that they look the way I'm looking at number 12 right now, and it's a nice, very nice color, but like I can pick it up with my finger now. Whereas before you needed a dabber to get in there and crack it open, because it was
mhm,
it was real glassy.
mhm,
Um, but no, I mean, props to everybody. Like I said, the time frame that I started in to what it is now is obviously tenfold, um, way better. Everybody's putting out good products. People are finding good cultivars that do good things for, as far as returns and color and smell and profiles and stuff like that. So it's just really cool to see everybody have a chance, whether you live in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, everywhere that you can do it. It's cool that you know that somebody's doing something good. You know what I mean? It's not just one or two guys like it used to be. So
100%. And that used to
it's
make
cool.
make it hard for the one or two guys to trust everybody, and made that guy very reclusive.
Yeah. Yep.
So at the end of the day, yeah, I commend you on that for sure. I love where things are going, and I think it's going to even get even better as the science and the technology catches up with the resin ranching.
Yeah,
Uh,
as long as we don't let the big companies that have the money to just fucking push us aside, like we're nobodies. We really got to stay vigilant on that. Where you know, myself, if like just for shits and giggles, um, if Marlboro or one of those big companies came to me and said, "Oh, we have this huge facility. We want your name or your brand. We want you to work with us." I wouldn't do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not. I'd rather go to the local guy that is a homie of mine and do it that way, because I know we've been doing it and I ain't gonna beat around the bush on tiptoe around it, for 25 years, back when it was, not not good. It was illegal. You know what I mean? Even though it's still technically legal, but whatever. I just we can't let those guys get a hold of it and just push us away because it's
Well,
not it's not good.
and that's why I'm trying to, I want to spread the knowledge to all the home cultivars. I want them to understand that they can do this. That we don't
Yeah,
need we don't need industrial, we don't need industrial hash. We don't need industrial
right.
flowers. We don't
Right.
need.
And if you can't do it at home because of whatever reason, at least go to your local spot and support, your local
craft
growers and
a
and and
craft a craft
right,
grower. You guys are
right.
craft growers. That's what I call you guys. You guys are not your normal MSO. You're not
Well,
your normal
yeah,
state operator.
I
You guys take care of your resin and
right.
your mass versus the other one. It's they're pumping it out like it's fucking like it's commercial beer. So at the end of the day, you guys do it a little bit different, and that's the love, and then that's the difference.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Yep.
So
I
with that
mean,
said, man, sorry to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
no, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there any kind of tips you want to give somebody in regards to resin ranching?
The biggest tip I can give, like I tell everybody, is find yourself uh, a good cultivar, a nice pheno of some kind of cultivar that you like, whether it be fruit, whether it be gas, whether it be hazy, or I don't really recommend the haze too much because they don't work that well with resin ranching. But if you could find one, great. But that's the key is finding the right cultivar for if you're going to get into washing or squishing or you know usually a good way to tell if you have something that's going to wash, you can usually squish it as flour first. Make rosin out of the flour, and you
Gotcha.
get an idea of what you're going to be working with. You know what I mean?
So one thing I want to bring up, and I've it's a new thing that my homie put me onto the other day, Peli Pilar, is the jar test.
Say again, the what? The dry.
No,
Oh, the dry.
the jar test, the jar test. So you put like
y-
7 grams or so, or like 14
Yeah,
grams in the jar.
I mean, for somebody to throw 7 grand, or, a quarter into some water just to see. Like, I don't like it. It's not that I don't like it. I think it's
I got,
because I have no need to do it. You know what I
got
mean? Like so I just don't. I don't like promoting it because what you can easily just squish the fucking flour into some rosin, and if you get a good yield, you're most likely going to get some good hash out of it that you'll be able to squish and turn into rosin also. So with putting it in the jar, and then now you got to get the weed out and then pour the water out into bags or a bag, and you got this little pile of tiny dab of it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I can't in my head. I just can't. I've made fun of some friends of mine that do it, and they were like, "Man, I kind of feel like I feel a certain way about what you just said to me." I'm like, "Hey, man, just ask me, and I'll tell you if it's gonna wash or not. Instead of you wasting 7 grams, you know what I mean?" It's just that's just me being my old school, whatever. But yeah, to each his own. Do it. I don't. It's not doesn't turn me away from you. I'm just gonna laugh. That's all. It's not a
I,
it's not a derogatory laugh. It's not anything. It's just a giggle to my own self. Like, what are you doing?
hey, 100%. And in regards to that, man, the best thing about it is, I think the jar test is because, one, he's in a position where he has an abundance of it. He's doing
Yeah,
fresh
we're
frozen.
all right. Then yeah,
So,
great.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But as far as
right,
if I think when what you're mentioning is if you don't have abundance of it, then yeah, do a little flower test, a
right,
little flower rosin
right,
test. I'm sure, you
right.
can take two fucking 1 or 2 grams, preferably one, because then you can actually really get a good ratio of what you're returning
Exactly.
per gram.
Right.
And from there, bam. So yeah, I appreciate that, man. Do you want to share any of your social with us?
The only one I have is my Instagram, Mr. Bond 420. That's it.
That's right.
I don't do Facebook. I don't like any of that fucking stupid. I really even like Instagram. I put 6 videos up today, and only two of them stayed, and it's so weird because they're all weed, and the other six, the other four didn't get put up. I'm like, what the fuck? I kept having to fucking redo it, and I literally took me like 40 minutes just to put 2 freaking things up on my story because they tell me that I'm promoting fucking illegal drugs and shit, and I'm like,
Shadow
you
ban.
people suck. Like, get the fuck out of my shit. Like, I don't care. Everybody that follows me smokes weed, most likely. Like, probably 89, 92% smoke weed. So, and the other percentage don't give a fuck.
Yep, 100%. And that's what yeah, man.
This is a whole new conversation and a
You,
whole
you
new
know,
fucking podcast. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
I could go on and on and on and on.
Because my account's been shadow banned for years, just because
No,
of
it's fucked up because it happens to me every couple months, like, because I go on a hiatus again. You know, I'm like, fuck you, then. You know what I mean? I send them a shit ass response or whatever the hell, whatever way I can get to them and actually write something. I write, I write my mind and I tell them like, fuck off, like you people are fucking stupid. You're screwing with everybody's shit when you could just leave it alone. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to wish violence on anybody. Like, all I'm doing is posting my fucking job. Like, leave me alone. I had to get fingerprints taken and all kinds of shit to be able to do what I'm doing. Like, you know, yeah, whatever. I'll go off.
well, you know what, man? You're not the only one I know that feels this way. I know a lot of people who tell me about, things that happen when they put their posts up. I even got people who make comments. They say, hey, man, I commented on your thing and it got deleted. I
Yeah,
didn't delete your comment. That's
right.
Instagram policing my shit because I'm shadow banned, motherfucker. When you come on my page, knows who page you going on.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. And that's the point right there. If you don't like it, you
Don't
have
come.
the choice not to come onto my page,
That's right.
right? So fuck off with your pussy fucking shit. It's fucking kiss. Like, I've had it. I've had it with the censoring and like, as long I just said it before. As long as you're not promoting violence or any kind of hate or racism or whatever, and you're not hurting anybody or yourself, whatever, fuck off. That's the end
Definitely.
of it. That's the end of it.
Definitely.
But you know, you got fucking weirdos over at Facebook or Meta or whatever the fuck they want to be called now, and they sit there behind the keyboard and run these bot systems that just fucking, they look for specific words and specific pictures and whatever, and it's like, I see some girls posting on their titties are hanging out with nipples showing and shit, and I can't post a picture of my fucking hash. What?
Nope. Nope.
What?
That's not how that works, man. Definitely not how it works.
So
I know it's,
yeah,
you know,
I'll get shadow banned, and then all of a sudden I'll gain a bunch of followers. It'll just be like, and I'm like, I thought they were following me already, and then
ah,
I'm like, oh, they did a little wipe on my shit and shadow ban me, because I see it all the time. Oh, your post is fucking flag, blah blah. It's like, fuck off, and then I just don't go on it anymore. I just, you know,
I've been through it, man, and I'm still going through it to this day. So I have to be careful with the shit I do post. But in regards to that, again, we thank you so much for hopping on to the Terps of the Beast Coast. Thanks for being a judge for the NYC Resin Cup. Our next stop is actually Maine. So,
hell yeah, man. I appreciate you thinking about me. I'll do
oh,
it anytime.
no worries, brother. Anything else before we go?
No, man, everybody fucking be good to be good to each other, and just enjoy the plant for what it is, and try and be happy, stay positive. That's all I can really say.
For sure, man. Hey, and I want to remind you people, I don't advertise. Well, currently I don't. But if you can help me out, share, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you again for tuning into the Terps of the Beast Coast. Have a good one. We'll catch you in the next episode.